We often think of sanctity as this like almost impossible thing, right? Like it's only for, I don't know, saints and people like that. But this text we're looking at today says, no way. It's way easier than we think to achieve sanctity. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to look at it. The text really goes after those ideas that sanctity is just like this impossible task, like way too much for a normal person.
Exactly. It's like you need to be superhuman or something.
Totally. But this text makes it so much simpler. Instead of needing some huge, amazing feat, it just says it boils down to, and this is a quote, fidelity to the duties appointed by God.
Fidelity to the duties appointed by God. I like that. That actually sounds, I don't know why, but way more doable than how I usually picture it. But what does that even mean, actually, like in normal life?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The text breaks this whole fidelity idea into two parts, active fidelity and passive fidelity. And it says you need both of these for this easier path to being holy.
Okay, so let's break that down a little. I mean, active fidelity, that seems kind of self-explanatory, right? Like you're actively doing stuff, fulfilling your obligations, all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's putting in the work, living out those duties that God, lays out for us in our everyday lives. And here's a big thing the text really stresses. It says those duties, they're never going to be impossible for us. Even when things are tough or our life's a mess, we just got to focus on what we can do at that time.
So not about being perfect, more like just showing up consistently, even if it's something small. Like forcing yourself to be nice to that coworker who's always getting on your nerves, or choosing to actually hang out with your family instead of being glued to your phone. What are some of those everyday duties that come to your mind?
Yeah, I love how you put that. It really is about those little acts of love, those choices we make that might seem small but actually mean a lot in the bigger picture. For me, I try to start each day with at least a few minutes of just quiet thinking about what I'm grateful for, before everything gets crazy. It's finding those little ways to stay connected to what really matters.
And the text even uses this really practical example about going to Mass. It basically says, look, if you can't make it because you're sick or something's out of your control, you're off the hook. Your active fidelity there is to just focus on what you are able to do, working within your own limitations, right?
Absolutely. And I think that shows something really important. God gets us, like, way better than we get ourselves, He knows our hearts, our limits, and He's there for us right where we are. Active fidelity is not about trying to be some perfect person we can never be. It's about answering His call, however we can, with what we've got in every single moment.
Man, I love that. Okay, so that was active fidelity. Now there's passive fidelity, which, to be honest, sounds a bit more, passive, I guess. What's that look like when you actually do it?
This one can be a little harder to wrap your head around, but it's just as important. The text calls it loving acceptance. Basically, it's about being okay with whatever God wants in each moment, even and maybe especially when things are hard, painful even.
So when stuff's not going our way, like setbacks, disappointments, all that, passive fidelity is like surrendering to those things.
Yeah, kind of. But it's not like giving up and feeling defeated, It's more like looking for the deeper meaning, trusting that there's a bigger plan, even when we can't see it right now.
Okay, I think I get you. It's kind of like that whole silver lining thing, right? Like, even when things suck, there's always something good you can find if you look hard enough.
Exactly. It's about like shifting how you see things, choosing to see those tough times as chances to grow. And remembering that even when we feel lost and confused, God's still there, working things out in ways we might not get yet.
Makes sense. Though I gotta say, putting that into practice, that's gotta be hard sometimes. The text talks about finding sweetness and consolation even in the rough patches. And honestly, when I'm going through it, sweetness and consolation are like the last things on my mind.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. And it's important to say this isn't about pretending the pain's not real or forcing yourself to be happy when you're not. Passive fidelity is not about ignoring those bad feelings. It's about deciding how you're going to react to them.
Right. Like, you're not in control of everything that happens, but you can choose how you deal with it. That's something a lot of people struggle with, I bet.
For sure. Okay, picture this. You're at work and something goes totally wrong. A project you put your heart into just blows up, or you get passed over for that promotion you really wanted. Passive fidelity, in that moment, it's saying, okay, this sucks, I can't change it, but what can I learn from it? Maybe this actually opens up a new door you never even saw before, or it teaches you about being tough, or makes you rethink what really matters to you.
So there's a reason for it, even if we don't get it right away. And that's where having faith comes in, right?
Exactly. It's about saying, All right, something bigger than me is in charge. And trusting that even when things are uncertain or uncomfortable, there's a plan. And sometimes that plan, it means going through the ringer so we come out stronger, you know?
I like that. Which, it connects to something else I thought was really cool in the text. The mustard seed and the drachma, those metaphors.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones.
Right. So for anyone who hasn't read it, it compares finding sanctity to a tiny mustard seed, which obviously can grow into something huge E. And then there's a drachma, like a small coin that you're stoked to find when you'd lost it.
And both of those, they really get at what we've been saying all along, don't they? They're
Yeah.
like, hey, sanctity isn't this big, impossible quest. It's not about going to crazy lengths to find it. It's already here in the everyday stuff, just waiting for us to see it.
Yes. It's like opening your eyes to what's right in front of you the whole time, seeing those little hints of God in the normal, boring parts of life even.
Totally. It's like when you've been freaking out looking for your keys, and then, bam, they were in your pocket the whole time.
Right.
That, oh, thank God feeling. That's what the text is going for when it says we can find sanctity in the ordinary.
Man, that's such a good way to put it. And it makes you think, how often are we making things too complicated? We get so caught up in the daily grind that we miss those quiet moments where God's trying to get our attention.
All the time, right?
All right.
But the more we can just be present, tune out the noise and distractions, the more we'll notice those little flashes of sanctity everywhere.
One thing that really hit me as we were going through this,
What's that?
this whole path to sanctity, like living out your faith with that active and passive fidelity, it's not just for, like priests and nuns, right? It's for anyone, no matter what they do.
You got it. That's a huge part of what the text is saying. It even uses examples like kings, ministers, everyday workers, you name it. It's about doing your thing, whatever that is, but doing it with that deeper sense of purpose, connecting it to your faith.
Yeah, exactly. It's saying you don't got to choose between being, say, a successful businesswoman or being a good person of faith. You can totally be both. Work, relationships, all those daily things, they can all be part of your faith if you approach them the right way with that active and passive fidelity we were talking about.
Such a powerful message and so needed these days,
Yeah.
It's easy to think sanctity means checking out a real world, living some crazy life. But this text is like, nope, it's right here in the everyday, no matter what your life's like.
And that kind of leads into something else really interesting the text says.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
So it's this idea that even beyond what we do, our own actions and fidelity, there's something even bigger going on.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The text straight up says that divine activity permeates the whole universe. Like it's in every moment, every part of creation, whether we realize it or not. What do you make of that?
Wow, it's deep.
Yeah.
I think it could totally change how we see everything. It's like this. Imagine Wi-Fi, right? You can't see it, can't touch it, but it's all around, connecting us in ways we don't even get. That's kind of what this text is saying about divine activity. It's this constant presence, this unseen force running through everything, just waiting for us to tune in.
So it's not that God's far off. It's more like we're often just not paying attention to how he's already here, working all around us.
Exactly. We got to cultivate that awareness, that sensitivity to the divine in every single part of our lives.
So bringing it all back to sanctity, it's not about struggling to be some perfect person or trying to win God's favor by being good. It's about lining ourselves up with that divine action that's already happening, letting his grace flow through us out into the world.
Perfectly put. Showing up every day with open hearts, open minds, taking on whatever life throws at us, and trusting that even when we're lost and alone, God's right there with us.
And maybe, just maybe, if we can start to see things this way, embrace both the doing ND, the accepting, that active ND, passive fidelity, and really open our eyes to God's presence, well, maybe we'll start to see those little seeds of sanctity popping up everywhere.
What a beautiful thought. Simple but profound. Something we can all think about more deeply, for sure.
Couldn't agree more. And for everyone listening, here's something to chew on. If, like the text says, divine activity really eye us all around us, how can you be more aware of it in your life? How can you let it guide you in everything you do, big or small? Until next time.